Well, hi guys, welcome to another day. I've got High Wycombe first, and then back for a second, supposedly. Haven't got a clue what that's supposed to be, because I was actually supposed to be down for Chichester, but things run behind every so often. So just filling all of that in. Oh yeah, better bung me card in, hadn't I? Nearly forgot about that. Oh, started at 10:15. I've been on POA for the last half hour. Now I've been given a unit and paperwork to High Wycombe, so job's a good one. It's not too far away. I haven't done High Wycombe in a dog's age. I know where High Wycombe is. Obviously, I'm not quite that stupid, but I'm going to use my Prat Nav just so as I can. Oh, hold on. Don't know why I'm going that way. That's a bit divvy. There we go. Lovely, lovely. Just so as I can be certain that I know where I'm going. Because I know I've got to get off at junction 4 on the 40. But, you know, Prat Nav is useful every so often, has to be said. Alright, so bung that on there, bung that like that. Job's a good one. Right. I'll keep that down there, because I want to avoid any show of, what do you call it? Company logo and all that kind of jazz. So I'm looking in my mirror. The only thing you might be able to see out there is a fleck of a blue trailer, and that's about it. So who knows? But yes, I shall at some point, most likely on my break, regale you with my first ever induction or assessment drive. So for anybody who has heard this story before, many apologies. But I have always said, since I took down my first load of stuff, all my hashtag ones, that I would be going back over all the stuff I've taken down. So if you've been watching me for a while, this is going to get dull and boring. I shall try and tell it slightly differently to make it seem new, but obviously there's only so much I can tell differently to an original story. Yes. So that should be hopefully interesting for the new subscribers and the new guys who are curious about what occurs. Because this is the thing, if you're agency, you'll get given assessments here, there and everywhere, and you'll be told you have an assessment on such and such a day at such and such time, but they will not tell you anything about what to expect on your assessment. So hopefully this will enlighten you. Anyway, as you will have probably noticed, there was no upload yesterday. That's because my internet disappeared. Literally, it quite literally buggered off. I don't know what the hell happened, but I had internet. I edited everything. Just give that a bit of a clean, lovely. Edited everything, and then I didn't have internet anymore. But anyway, I shall most likely see you when I'm on my break. I'm just going to crank the High Wycombe out and come back in every break in the yard. So I shall see you when I'm on my break, and I shall tell you of my first ever day, or my induction. Not my first ever day on my own, because my induction was a couple of days before. But I shall tell you about that. here we are, back at the yard, done me delivery, lovely jubbly. And I trust you all noticed the Skoda that I slowed the footage down for to show you. Yep, that's the Royal Mail driver, if you remember from those vlogs all that time ago, doing exactly the same manoeuvre but in his car. So, yeah. Turns out Royal Mail did absolutely nothing with the footage. Some of you said I should send it to them, so I did for a bit of a giggle. And yes, there was the Skoda. Same manoeuvre back out. But anyway, you guys probably now want to hear, well, the new guys at least, about my first ever induction. Well, I'm going to go back a little bit before that. Now, I'm just going to double check something, because I'm sure I've got it right, but I want to make certain. Yeah, okie dokie. I thought I had it correct. Because you've got your various bits and bobs with your driving licences. And I'm just trying to figure out all the categories, because it's been so long since I last did my test. Like I do them all the time. But, you've got your C1, 7.5 tonne, you've got your C, and then you've got your C1 plus E or CE. CE is your class 1, standard one, unit, trailer. Then C1 plus E is your wagon and drag. C1 plus E is exactly the same as CE, which is why you can do it in either one. But anyway, moving on. I did my test in my class 2 and trundled along through the test, and I passed. I got 8 minors, and it all got sent away, and my licence came back and it only had C1 on it. I was like, ooh. I did that in a C. Now, I had the test pass certificate that said C. Now, I know a few of you guys have been passing your lesson test, and you've been told you can drive on your practical test certificate. Yes, you can. However, the DVLA do not use that certificate to issue your licence. That certificate is just for you. What the DVLA use is that little tick sheet, the mark sheet. It was green when I did it. I don't know what colour it is these days. But that little mark sheet, the duplicate book pad that he carries around with him. You've got your minor boxes and then the bigger boxes, which are your majors. Well, that's what they use. My examiner filled in C1, not C. And so the DVLA believed I'd only done a 7.5 tonne licence, even though the vehicle I went out on a test in was about 8 and something tonne empty. But they weren't having it, and I said, well, look, you know, I got my certificate. I even sent it away at one point, and they sent it back with a nice note saying, well, according to our system, you've got C1. So to all you guys who are passing and going to go out and drive on your certificate, you've got the tick sheet. Check the class. Make sure it's correct, because if that class is not the same as you passed, the DVLA, and therefore the law enforcement, don't know, will not take your practical test certificate as proof. You will only have 7.5 tonne. If you get caught driving an 18 tonner, you're in deep doo-doo. Okay, remember that. And now, it took a few months. What I ended up having to do was go back to the test centre. Fortunately, I bumped in to my examiner. And I explained the situation. I said, look, you know, you mark C1. Look, I've just discovered it on here, and what's going on? And he went, oh, okay. And he sorted it all out. They internally sent my licence off, and I got my new one through, and then I could carry on with my Class 1. Class 1, I went through 12 minors. I even went up a roundabout. I went up a roundabout, and I still passed. Now, some of you will be sitting there going, how did you pass? I don't know whether you're familiar, but in Dagenham there are roundabouts known as the Witch's Hat roundabouts. The reason is because they're roundabouts, but tar has gone up into a witch's hat shape. Basically, the roundabout's there, and it just goes all the way up into a point. It's off the A13 going into Dagenham. I can't remember what junction it is now, but you'll be able to find it on Google app if you want to have a shuffle. Now, you go down the slip road from the 13 to these roundabouts. Now, the near side lane is left only or into the warehouse, depot, whatever it is. And the right hand lane is to turn right. The roundabout has hashing on the near side. That is for trucks to go in to go wide so as you don't hit the roundabout. Fine. So I've gone down, I'm doing the manual, doing all the whistles and bells, and I've had to stop. I'm waiting, and this Nova's come alongside me, and I'm looking down and I'm thinking, something doesn't feel right. So we've taken off. Well, I've gone first and he's been snoozing. I don't know what the hell he's been doing, but whatever, I've gone. And I've gone to go wide, and as I've gone wide, obviously you're turning in like that, so your mirror goes to your trailer and then it goes, and there's a moment in your mirrors where you're kinking that way, you can see your panoramic, especially if you set it up correctly. And I just saw the Nova and I knew exactly where he was going. He was going into the hashing, which is exactly where my unit was going. So I spun in to avoid him. He went round, I went whoomph up the bleating roundabout and down and all that, and I just went, love of God, you know, I failed and everything like that. The examiner, the same guy who took me on my class 2, he sat there and he went, I'm not going to fail you for that one, mate. I went, really? But I just went up a roundabout. He went, you were avoiding an accident. I'm not going to fail you for that. And so carried on. I ended up with 12 minors. But as I'll point out to anybody, my class 1 licence is exactly the same as that person's class 1 licence. Don't matter how many minors you got, as long as you got it. As long as you passed. Now, going on to my induction. At the time I worked for Sainsbury's. I was night crew in one of the stores, the Chelmsford store. And I put myself through class 2 and then class 1. And it was around about September time, October time. And I phoned up an agency. Now, I knew of the agencies Sainsbury's ran, or run, because obviously I worked nights, but I was back door, so I used to unload all the trucks. So I knew all the night drivers. And I knew the ones they used and the ones that some of them who'd gone full time had used when they first ever went into Sainsbury's. And so I phoned up one of the agencies, the agency I still work for today, and I explained the situation. I said I'm new, and they went, well, we'll put you on our books, but you're new, you've got no experience, see what happens. Went for about a month. It was into November, and I get a phone call, and they say, am I still interested in doing a site induction at a Sainsbury's site? I was like, yeah, of course I am. You know, I hadn't tried anywhere else. I was just waiting, because volumes in supermarkets go up immensely at winter time, you know, at Christmas time, and they just need bums on seats. They're going to take you on. So I waited. I played the waiting game. I already had a full-time job. I already had enough money to keep me going. So I waited and I got my assessment. Now, I was going to a depot for the store I worked in, so I had the company uniform. So I wandered off to my assessment in my company uniform. So I'm wandering, Sainsbury's uniform, and wander through, and I sign in, do all the whistles and bells, and I'm told where to go, and I bugger off to there. And I explain who I am, and I go into the room where the trainers are. And I get taken in by one of the agency guys who are on site to, you know, chaperone me around the site. And I walk through the door, and there's 2 trainers sitting there. And one of them looks at me and goes, sorry, we can't assess you. Alarm bells, panic, everything going off. Even the guy from the agency isn't in on this joke. And they're like, sorry, we can't assess you. I'm like, why? And I'm thinking it's my uniform. You know, I've done it. Because there is an internal transfer ban between stores and depots. The reason being, the people in the depots are paid more than the people in the store. And when the people in the store found that out, they all buggered off to the depots. So there's a ban. So of course I've gone in the uniform trying to play the advantage, and everything's just gone. I'm like, oh, I've knackered it. I should have come in plain clothes, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, why can't you assess me? And he turned around and he went, because your last name doesn't end in ski. I was like, you realise then. Now, there are certain things you are not told by your agency about an assessment. One of them is you need to do what is referred to as a DNA test. That doesn't mean your genetics. That means drug and alcohol. Basically, it's a urine test. You got to pee in a pot, give it to the poor bastard who's from your agency who's chaperoning you, and he's got to dump something in it and make sure that it doesn't turn a funny colour. So I'm one of these people that once I've peed, I don't need to pee for the hours, and I tend to go to the toilet before I leave to go somewhere. And this particular day was no different. I got in the toilet and I'd gone. And they went, well, you're going to have to, do the DNA test. Pee in a pot. There's two issues for me. First of all, I peed before I'd left home, so I really didn't need to go. And second of all, I can't pee in front of people. I just can't. I don't know why. I have no young memories of anything that freaked me out when I was younger, peeing in a urinal or, along the roadside in traffic jams when you're younger. I have no recollection of anything like that. Never been able to understand it. I just have, I think it's referred to as a shy bladder or something like that. I just can't. The only time I've ever been any good at that is if I'm drunk down the pub. When I'm going for a DNA test, I'm not drunk. If I was, I'd be able to pee, but I'd fail the test. Big style. So I was like, I don't need to go. And I'm explaining the situation, and they're like, well, no pee, no drive. This is a big problem. Now, this is something your agency will not tell you. Okay? It is better to go to one of these things needing a pee than not. Because if you pee before you leave, you might not be able to pee on site. So I'm like, oh, now what do I do? And they said, well, go to the water fountain, dispenser, whatever. Water cooler, that's the one. And just keep drinking water. And just, no pee, no assessment, end of story. We don't take you out unless you pass the DNA test. Okay, fine. So now I'm sitting in the room, in the driver's waiting area, and there's a driver sitting at this table who's obviously new to the site, same as me. So I'm sitting there and I'm drinking this water, and he's sitting there, and it turns out he was on an assessment a couple of days before and he failed it, and he's telling me the route they take you all the way through this estate and that estate and round here, and there's a couple of mini roundabouts, couple of this, all this kind of stuff, and it's really, really difficult. So that isn't improving my situation. I know that I don't need to pee for hours in between toilet breaks. And now I'm being told by somebody who's failed the assessment a couple of days before that it's a real, this route is, and I'm a new driver. Okay, I've got agricultural experience, but it's a bit different. Driving down country lanes with the odd occasional dual carriageway in a tractor and trailer is not like driving through a housing estate in Hoddesdon in one of these things. It's not even remotely similar. So I've now kind of got this, what's going on? Fortunately, I was in a situation where, yes, I'm going to be able to pee. Unfortunately, I didn't need to go, and there was no way on God's green earth I was going with the door open and the guy from the agency standing over me. So I've explained it to him, and I said, look, I'm going to be able to, but can you just push the door to and stand outside it? And he's trying to give me this excuse and that excuse about how I could put water in it, or I could this and that, and I'm like, seriously, dude, look at me. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be able to go. This is going to be a massive waste of time. And fortunately, he took pity on us, and the door was pushed to, and I was able to go. Passed the DNA test, lovely jubbly. Then we come to the assessment. Now, one word of advice I will give to everybody is play everything you can to your advantage. Now, if you're an experienced driver, you don't have to worry. You know what's going to happen. You know where you're going to go. You know all the whistles and bells. I've done loads of assessments since this day. It's the same rigmarole. You get a trainer who's a driver who just doesn't really care, and he's there, and if you can speak English, chances are you're not going to fail. I know that sounds a bit iffy, but it's true. It's a kind of a universal fact. You know, the only reason you'll fail is if you wallop a curb or wallop another car. Simple as. And so there we go. We wander across to our unit. The unit I'm going out in, which is a Volvo FH, an FH. And it's an automatic. Now, we get in there. Now, I've never used my card before. I have no clue. Fortunately, he talks me through putting it in and going through all the whistles and bells and so on and so forth. Put the card in, it's all gone through, he's told me what to do, I've done this, I've done that, and that's how I've learnt this. Okay, that's where I learnt this. Now obviously I've had to do my walk around checks to let him know I know what I'm doing, and to listen to him training me on how this site wants you to do it. My advice to any new driver is try and get in with a big blue chip supermarket. The reason being is they leave no stone unturned. They will show you everything you could ever want to check and then some. So there I go. Done that, got in. Now it's go to find the trailer. Lovely jubbly. So we drive round the yard and he asked me a question. Have I ever driven an automatic before? Yes, many times. However, I didn't say that. I said no. Never. Playing it to your advantage. And he's like, okie dokie, well what you do is you put that into A and then you just leave it. It will feel weird, but you just leave it. I went, okay, no worries. And we went round. I'm used to automatics. I've owned several of them. I've driven loads of them. But I was playing it to my advantage. So I've gone round, we found the trailer, we've hooked up, job's a good one, off we go. Now there's 2 lanes going out of this site. And it goes right back round to the roundabout and out. Now the lane you want to be in is the right hand one. I was in the near side one. I was in the left hand one. So I had the tighter of the turns. And so we've got up there, he's waved at the security guard. Obviously I'm on an assessment, so they're just going to let me go. They don't need to check anything and do all their bits and bobs. He's waved at us. Off we go. Now I've gone to go just as a van's gone to go. So I've started to turn early and the van's gone past me. The assessor has gone, watch the curb, and I've looked, and of course I'm turning early, and my trailer is cutting up the big, and it's one of those wheel buster curbs, you know, and I'm like, oh crap, so I've gone wide, I've gone back round, and perfectly fine. And we've carried on. Now I'm expecting this assessment to be all the way through these housing estates and industrial estates and this, and round Oddisdon, and up here and up there, and all over the bleeding place. So of course, you know, you're sweaty and you're like, oh yeah, and I'm trying to have a conversation, all that kind of stuff, just to kind of calm myself down more than anything. And we've wandered along and he's asking about which store I work in. I've told him this, and we've got down the M25, we've gone down the M25, we're pulling off at the A10, directly towards Hoddesdon, everything's coming through. I'm just dreading it. You know, I'm in a full-size triaxle. The one I did in my testing was a shorter trailer, twin axle. I'm out of my depth. And here I go, I'm nervous as Billy-O. We go up to the A10 roundabout, round the A10 roundabout, back down onto the M25. Trundle along. Da, 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 da. We go back to the site. You get on site and he's like, well, you've passed that one. The only thing I'll say is slow down a little bit when you're going around a roundabout. Just imagine that you've got a bucket of water in the back, a massive tub of water in the back, and you only get paid for the amount of water you've delivered successfully. Just slow it down. You're going a bit too quick in the roundabouts. Okay, fair enough. So we've gone on site. He's like, right, let's see how good you are at reversing. So he said, go into bay, whatever it was. I think it was something like 248 or whatever. The number is immaterial. Go into 248. I go, okay. And I've reversed into 247. And I'm going in and I've realised I have overcooked this. And if I try and go into 248, I'm going to be shunting for Billio. Play it to your advantage. I know I'm going into 247. I know I can get into 247 nice and easily. So I've gone into 247. And as I'm going into 247, I've just kind of looked back to check my mirror and I said, you did say 247, didn't you, mate? He went, yeah, don't matter, just go into whichever one. You know, play it to your advantage. And we've stopped. Now, Sainsbury's units have a window there and a window at the back. And I've gone in perfectly normal reverse. And he said, yep, no, that's fine. You can clearly reverse a trailer. You know what you're doing. I only wanted to check to make sure you knew which way to turn them because, trust me, we've had guys come on this site who can't work it out worth crap. I'm like, okay, no worries. So we've driven back round. Now, on this site, when you go down the front of the site, where the transport is and everything like that, it's supposedly one way. Which means all the bays on the left are blindside. And all the ones onto the building, all the docks, are normal. Well, before you really go out onto the assessment, they give you a little kind of, these are the rules of this site, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. And so they've told me about the one-way system. And of course, where transport is, you don't really want to spin round and break the rules. You got all the site managers and everything like that. You really don't want to. So we're trundling along and he says, can you bung it in that bay over there? I went, no worries, not a problem. And there's two trailers and this bay, and I've gone round and I've blindsided in using the windows. And I've just blindsided in without even really thinking about it. And he's looked at me and he's like, I am not failing you after that one. You're supposed to be a new driver. And then of course I said about my agricultural experience, and he's like, well, that explains that then. Yeah, I just went straight in. I was like, yes, done it. And we went in, I passed the assessment, job's a good one. The thing I will tell you when it comes to this kind of thing, for the new guys, as I said a few times in the story, play absolutely everything you can to your advantage. If you've driven an automatic before, don't let them know that. Because then they'll talk you through what the auto's doing and you can sit there and go, hey, it's weird, isn't it? I keep wanting to go for the clutch. You know, you can have a bit of a laugh and a joke and calm yourself down. Okay, you know it's a lie. They don't. So play absolutely everything you can. If you're doing a reverse manoeuvre, now, if they know you're new, and even if they don't know you're new, to be fair, even if they know you're experienced, chances are when you do the reverse manoeuvre, it's going to be into open bays. So you're going to have the bay they want you in, and you're going to have a couple of spaces either side of you, because they don't know how good you are. And they don't want you slamming into one of the trailers. Remember, they don't have dual controls. You are just going out in one of their vehicles. And so if you find yourself doing that, the biggest mistake people make is when you're new and you're trying to do the reverse, or you're nervous and you're trying to do the reverse, you will overcook it. You will kink that trailer around too far. Which more often than not, because you're not used to judging the distance in that mirror, means you're going to go into the bay before the one they want you to go into. If you realise you're doing that and then try and save it, you're going to be shunting all day long. Okay? You just are. So again, play it to your advantage. You're going into the one before it, just say, you did want that bay, didn't you? And he might turn around and say, no, I actually said that. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake. And chances are they'll be like, no, just go into that one, you clearly misheard us. Because the numbers are on the floor. So when he says a number, for all he knows, you were looking at 247. You heard the 24, but because the last thing you saw was 247 before you started turning, so play it all to your advantage. Do whatever you can to pass that assessment. If you work for the company in one of the stores and you're going to their depot, wear the bloody uniform. You know, it was one of those things, after I did that, and after I passed it and we were walking back, I actually turned to him and I said, but I thought we had to go through here, there and everywhere. And he went, shut up. You work for this company. I went, yeah, I wasn't going to fail you. Cheers. Now, this particular assessor was from a different depot. He'd just been drafted in because they were taking on so many drivers for Christmas. And that's one thing I will give. This is the advice I will give to every driver. If you want to get experience and you can't find a company to take you on, and you are within about an hour of a supermarket depot, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda's, Morrison's, who the hell ever, apply to the agencies you know, try and find them out, you know, go into those depots. And apply to them just before Christmas, so like September, October time, and wait. Because when it gets to Christmas, they're going to be getting phone calls going, can you supply X amount of extra dozen drivers here and there and everywhere? We need an extra 120 drivers. Your name is in that hat. It will be pulled out. So, like I said, when you start out in this game, it's the 2-year experience conundrum. You can't get experience without a job. You can't get a job without experience. Play everything you can to your advantage. It's coming up to Christmas. Big blue chip companies, even if it's Yodel or the DHL or something like that, at Christmas time, the parcels, packages, Christmas cards, the volumes are going through the roof. They need arses on seats. They're hiring in units because they need more loads going out. So play it to your advantage. Do whatever you can, even if it's lying through your back teeth. Once you're in, you're in. It's done. It's dealt with. But that first assessment, everything you can think of, play it to your advantage. If you know you're making a mistake, like I did with that bay, you know you're going into the other one, just double check. You know, you've got to look back to check that mirror. If you don't, the assessor's probably going to have a word with you. Because you have to. Because what happens if a shunt vehicle is trying to whiz past as your cab's coming out? So when you look back, just ask the question. Just say, you did say such and such, didn't you? Literally, just brush it off like that. And chances are he'll be like, well, I know he's new. No, he's nervous. Okay, I'll let him off. He can clearly reverse it, so what does it matter? Now, obviously, if the site you're in doesn't have those windows, don't try and be a clever sod and blindside it. When you are new, trying to blindside with just mirrors and nothing else, that is a stop, get out, have a look moment. Okay, it just is. Especially if it's a 90 degree in between two trailers. If you've got the windows and you think you're confident enough to do it, go for it. Otherwise, if that situation presents itself, ask him, is it alright if I spin round and do this normally? Chances are he'll be like, yeah, not a problem, don't worry about it. Because most assessments, they don't want you to blindside. They don't really care. But anyway, that was my induction. Obviously, the little bit about me test first. Always check that blasted mark sheet. Because you might have that test certificate, you know, practical test certificate pass thingy, and it says C, and you've only got C1, you are going to get stopped, and they will not accept that. Because if you start driving for a firm, class 2, and then you get your license back and it only got 7.5 ton on it, that firm is going to be really angry at you, really annoyed, and that's not a position you want to be in. But anyway, hope you enjoyed that one. I have prattled on for quite some considerable time, so I will end my day now. But anyway, like, subscribe, share about, do whatever it is you usually do. Does seem to be working, and I shall see you in the next one, which will be tomorrow, hopefully, as long as it doesn't get cancelled. I'm in at 12. I've got a cheeky little Wellingborough left for my day now, so that's lovely and easy. And yeah, cheers guys.